I'm live, but I can see absolutely nothing on my screen. Hello, Mary Lynn. Can you see my face and everything talking here? Because I have absolutely no indication of that. But my wife said that on her cell phone she did see.
I'm checking right now. Okay, this live event will begin in 6 p.m. Okay? Because it's showing that you're not.
Is that the other one, little one?
Yes. It says this live event will
Is
begin.
that the 26?
Yes. The one with Mary Lynn that says hello.
Okay. Hello, Harry. Fascinating.
Okay, now I am seeing you.
Yep, and I saw your message. Hi, honey bunny. Okay, so apparently I'm going to be even more handicapped than usual because I have absolutely no video. Luckily, I'm the one who creates the visual effects, but this makes it kind of hard for like me to get the board behind me lined up. Can you come over here so I can? You can't just do that. It's got to move a lot more. Go ahead. Just sit down in the chair.
Do you want to watch yourself? Here.
No, I want to watch you and watch on that. Okay. So
Hi,
you're
everybody.
there. Boy, it's got quite a lag.
Yeah, it has an awful lag.
There's that. No. See, I moved it that way.
Yeah, I wanted to let you know where the middle of your camera
No,
view
just,
is.
You said the one part. I can see. Just stand up. Put the chair where I'm going to want it. Okay, now sit down. I just stay there. I will look. See how the whiteboard, wow, is pretty much visible behind you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Honey Bunny, I'm seeing video on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't see anything on my screen, and there's a heck of a delay there.
Yeah, I have no clue.
So it makes it very difficult. Okay, so that has to go that way. Wow, this is going to be really fun. So to see that.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, dude.
Oh, I know what to do. I can adapt. It's just going to be extremely annoying with that huge delay and not being able to see.
Pan camera right a little bit, Harry says.
Yeah, I know.
I'm agreeing. You should.
I just did. Oh, wrong way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Harry said the other right. Rob Bob says you have cable.
Okay, let's see how that works.
Well,
now if you can just hold that over here for a minute while I sit down. As long as I know I can sit in the seat and people can see the board.
Yeah, people can see the board and they won't see much of you at all because no, you need to lean toward me.
That's what I'm trying to do. Say it's hugely reversed. Okay. So if I sit right about here, that's good. Let me move the board closer.
Okay.
Innovate, adapt, overcome.
Now, if you want, I can leave my phone over here with this on mute so you can see what's going on.
No.
I don't think you
Which
need
hand
to.
is which?
The right hand is the one that's going to be showing on the screen, dude.
That's what I'm trying to do here. Okay. So I need to go more that direction.
Yeah.
I think I probably went the wrong direction. Did anything move on the back? Look where the thing is there.
Yeah, now we got the whole board in the film.
That's fairly close.
Yeah, that's fairly close.
Oh dear. Okay. Anyhow.
Okay. Now
I guess we'll just have to deal with it that.
Do you want me to keep my phone over here so you can see?
As long as I know it's in the picture, it's no big deal.
Yeah, you're in the picture.
I'll have to point directly to the board instead of looking over my shoulder anyhow. Well, let's see. For the last weeks, it's reversed, and now it's just disappeared entirely. Simply amazing. I hate YouTube. Anyhow. Hi, Brian. So let's see. Yeah, I saw that rock sample you had there. It would be nice if there had been gold in the fluids. Let's see. Harry Smith, Rob Bob. See who else we got. Okay, and Steve has not showed up yet, at least visually. Hey, Jean-Francois. I'm having a real fun night because I have absolutely no picture of me on my screen. Steve B, are you out there? Cool, Brian. Let me know how it works out. So, anyhow, I don't know. Not to my knowledge. That I don't think I'm a vampire. Besides, isn't that mirrors? Not sure. Anyhow, so Zioxio or Alex, I don't know what his last thing is now. It's Alex something around there. He sent me a video or a notification, press release basically. Some mining company has got a leaching system, and let's see, Clever, Clever. Okay, let me write that up here. Isn't that a real clever leg? And it's sodium hypochlorite with a little sodium hypobromide. And the advantage of this system, aside from lower toxicity than the sodium cyanide, is that it supposedly dissolves the gold much faster. It's much more aggressive. Okay. Yeah, Jean-Francois, it'd be nice to have a big lab and a big budget. We could have all kinds of fun.
It would be nice to have any lab.
I don't know why. I'm not sure why your back hurts, honey bunny. But Eva's back is kind of sore right now too, from loading aluminum siding. Because I was redoing the stream real quick and I mistyped. Believe it or not, sometimes my fingers do not hit the right keys. Yeah, that's kind of the way it is sometimes now. Honey Bunny. The shipping is worse than the damn product itself. Yeah, Eva, I don't know if it was positional or whatever, but we were helping Jimmy remove some siding from a house, some aluminum siding. The homeowner wants to remove all that and then replace it with a different look. And so when we were removing it, they had half-inch thick strips of, or maybe even less than that. I don't know, but anyhow, thin depth strips, like 6 inches wide of styrofoam underneath it, and the we would just kind of pile it up ways, and then Eva would break it up and put it in sacks, and then we loaded as much aluminum from that as we could into the camper to bring it up here. The apparently in Butte, the um, price for painted aluminum is like 15 cents a pound. In Helena, it's 30 cents a pound. From where the house was and everything, Jimmy didn't think it would be, you know, profitable. He's only got so much time and fuel and this and that and the other. And he figured it's simpler just to take it to the dump. So he just gave us whatever we could load and take with us. And we would have had a little more, but Eva's back was getting pretty sore. And we went and loaded the camper to, I don't know, 12 inches from the ceiling. And so, hey, Rock, Eva's back is a little sore, but that's it. And anyhow, so when I took it to the scrapyard today, believe it or not, we got 263 pounds of aluminum siding in that camper. Wow.
If I'd had time to load it more slowly and organize it the way we wanted to, I probably could have gotten more in there.
I'm sure we could have got more in there. There was still 12 inches to the ceiling. We could have certainly got that if nothing else.
I had a couple of ideas.
But anyhow, so that's what we did last week. Hey, good one, David. ¿Hablan usted español, Rock Butcher? So, anyhow, that's what we did last week primarily. This week, we have a lot of doctor's appointments. And tomorrow, I have to get up at 5:30 in the morning. Hey, good. I thought you might, Rock. You've been around a bit. But anyhow, so I got to get up at 5:30 in the morning, leave here by 6:30, something like that. Drive over to Missoula to do some neurological testing all day. Now, this is, as far as we know, there's nothing seriously wrong. I'm probably just getting old, but I'm a little bit paranoid. And when I can't remember things the way I used to and stuff like that, I'm just concerned. Does this have something to do with the lesion from the stroke I had years ago? Or is it, just aging? Is it something else? I don't know. I prefer to know. And so I got to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, 120 miles from here, for a whole day of testing and bring my own lunch because we only got 30 minutes for lunch. So it's like, okay, lunch is already, sandwiches are already fabricated in the refrigerator. So anyhow.
Oh, interesting.
What little one?
Oh, it turned out that some of those Texas National Guard down there in El Paso.
Yeah.
ended up in the hospital because those unarmed people were armed with like knives and shit.
Oh, really? Then they should have shot them. But anyhow,
Saying,
so I say that's what we got. And Eva's got a couple of scans and stuff. Um, uh, Eva's surgeon last week when we went there um, examined her carefully and stuff. And as far as he's concerned, he thinks that the cancer is gone, and that if she has any questions or concerns, they'll be happy to, take a look at things again and whatever. But as far as his opinion is, he's not going to be seeing her again. So that's very, very good news. Um, and then what is it? Oh, Sunday, Easter Sunday, believe it or not, I go to the hospital to get a pulmonary test. Hey, Steve, there you are. Um, if you obviously have some questions for me, so whenever you're ready, you can start those. This is just kind of the preliminary yak while people log on. Steve has got some questions about leaching and resin and this and that and the other. So, you know how it is when somebody asks questions, it really helps move conversation in a productive manner. So, anyhow, that's basically it. I'm just a little shorter of breath than I used to be, so have it checked out again. Um, I just, my life's been saved twice by getting checked out, so I'll go ahead and keep being a little bit overly paranoid and see how long I can continue my oxygen addiction. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, David. I can't see the video screen like I usually would. I mean, I've got my computer, but where normally I would see the feed from my camera, it's just black. But everyone else out there can see it.
and
Go
I can
figure.
see it.
You know? What is the desired grind size for optimal leaching? Say what again, Jean Francois? Yeah, that's what's happening right now. I can't see anything there except black. That's it. Um, the desired grind size is determined by experiment because the ores and rocks and everything else are radically different in many, many different. Well, actually, it's YouTube. I can see the screen. The screen is just showing me black. But um, the whole issue of what's the best way to treat something, there is no answer. There's a lot of different answers depending on the exact mineralogy and composition and geochemistry of the particular rock that you're dealing with. For example, right now we have samples from the Mystery Dump, from Top of the Hill, and Montana B. Mystery Dump and Top of the Hill are fairly similar in many ways. Okay. They're a much cleaner quartz than Montana B, which is like 35% iron. But the gold exists in much larger particle sizes in Top of the Hill and Mystery Dump than it does at Montana B. So, in the case of Montana B, it makes sense to worry primarily about leaching because the gold particle size is so extraordinarily small on average. Um, a good quality gravity separation was only getting us about 20% recovery. with leaching, we can do much better than that. The reason is I mean, the studies that Montana Tech did in Butte was that 80% by weight of the gold was less than 6.8 microns, or about 2300 mesh, somewhere around there. Yeah, Alex, I already mentioned that. And I suppose I could probably call up the link. Um, I should remind me later, Alex, and I'll go ahead and call up that link and post it so that everyone can see it and look themselves. But anyhow, Steve, so with the much larger average particle size at top of the hill and mystery dump, we were able to get around 50% recovery just by gravity separation. Okay, Rock. Then as Rock just mentioned, is the permeability of the rock. If this is all crystal lock stuff, then you have to crush it very fine to get a free surface of the gold exposed to the solution. Let's suppose you have a rock and it has gold in it, like this. In order to get a fairly clean concentrate, you're going to need to break the rock up to about that size, okay? So that these particles are broken away from the rock, and that's called mineral liberation. If you're going to leach and this rock is porous, like say a sandstone, you could break it up into much larger particles and still potentially leach it. But ideally, you would want a particle more like this, where the gold is actually exposed to the solution. This is exposure, mineral exposure. This is liberation. And if this host rock, say it's quartz, isn't very porous, then this would be crystal locked. And you can see that in order to achieve whatever you need to achieve, you need to crush it to different sizes. There is no general rule. I think sodium hydroxide will, yeah. But it's a lot safer than hydrofluoric acid. But anyhow, Steve, so what you need to do is crush the rock and use different grind sizes. Now, I don't know how much money you have, how much equipment you have, et cetera, et cetera. So the cheap way of crushing rock to different grind sizes is to grind it reasonably small, say 30 mesh minus, 40 mesh minus, and then screen it to different sizes, and then do your tests on the different screen sizes, okay? And that will give you an idea. It's not a perfect proxy for grinding, one sample 100% passing 50 mesh, another sample 100% passing 70 mesh, another sample 100% passing 100 mesh. That would be ideal, but that takes time, money, and things like a disc grinder, okay, and recirculation. But it's not one of those things that is real critical, at least at first. Initially you're trying to get a good idea of what might work. So crush it to a reasonable size. Now, are you going to be heap leaching, Are you going to be tank leaching? You doing VAT or agitation tank leaching? These are sort of things. But oh dear. Well, then you're probably going to want to go, I say, if it's less than 5 micron and it's encased in very hard silica, you may actually have an insurmountable problem in terms of, depending on how bad the situation is and how good the ore grade is, you may not be able to do it economically. But the way you do this is testing. Crush it to a reasonable size. I don't know what kind of crushing equipment you have. Do you have access to basically a metallurgical laboratory or something? Or are you just doing this in a backyard on the cheap? So I'm trying to get an idea what your situation is, because you'd go about it in a somewhat different way. You do have access to a metallurgical lab? Okay. Then I'd try grinding to, say, 100% passing 50 mesh, first of all. And then I would use a Lixivant, whichever one you're choosing to try first, and do a bottle roll test, and then analyze the solution, which is relatively to do with ICP or AA. In our case, we use an Eco Goldex leach with a ICP mass spec finish for the actual determination of the amount of gold. You are also going to need to determine how much gold is in the original rock. So you're going to want to have to crush a reasonable size sample and split it down. Okay, 3 parts per million in solution, but what was the grade of the ore and what was the ratio of ore to solution? So that I mean, 3 parts per million can mean a lot of things. What I'm trying to get is what's a percentage recovery. And the ore will not fire assay? I think they pretty much will if you do it right, but fire assay is tricky. There's certain things that are very difficult to fire assay well. How do you know what kind of assay are you using? Like an aqua regia digestion and an AA finish? Or what? How do you know how much gold is in the ore to begin with? Because it makes a difference. I'm thinking aqua regia digestion is pretty much a leaching essentially anyhow. So it's not going to. So again, Steve, what is the method of determining the gold in the head ore to begin with? The ore digestion with AA finish. Okay. Now, what is the grade of the ore and what is the ratio of ore to cyanide solution, and what is the method of agitation I presume you're using for that? I would presume a bottle roll, but I don't want to presume anything. I just need to ask these questions. Because without specifics, you're just kind of guessing. So, AR digestion with an AA finish, I presume at a reputable lab. In certain cases, that can be better than a fire assay, depending upon the the details of the ore because they use radically different methodologies. Okay, 4 hours. That's kind of slow for cyanide bottle roll. I'd go for 24 hours. But again, what was your head grade and what is your solids to liquid ratio so I can see how much you should have gotten at 100% recovery in the solution? Because the 3 parts per million tells you what you recovered, but it didn't say what percentage of your head grade you did. If you used a lot of solution and a little solids, that might be a pretty good head grade. If it was 1-to-1, not very good recovery. You're talking 1/10 of an ounce per ton recovered. So this is one of those things that I need to know to give you an idea of, an opinion. Certainly, Steve. If you can do that, then I can look at it. But did you guys calculate some kind of percentage recovery or a parent? I will go ahead and just kind of go more general here now while we're talking. You have to know how much gold is in your sample, whether that be as a percentage concentration or an absolute amount. And then you have to figure out how much gold made it into the solution. Now, as a general rule, cyanide is a fairly slow dissolver of gold. And as such, a 4-hour leach cycle I've never heard of in a mining operation. Okay. I've heard of anything from 24 hours all the way up to 72 hours, depending on the circumstances. Depending on the size of the gold, the permeability of the host rock, that whatever's hosting that gold is, and the particle size and the grind size, you may or may not benefit from extended leaching times in the long run. I mean, there's going to be an optimum leach point in terms of economics, etc. If you do it for 24 hours and you get 80% of the gold, and you do it for 48 hours and you get 82% of the gold, it's not worth it. Simple. But you actually have to get some numbers and do a little math to figure out what your advantage is. It also depends on what you're going to do with that waste product, with those tailings, when you're done.
Oh, shit.
If you have a system like this, +4 ounces per ton. Well, that's pretty good. And halide leaching with sodium hypochlorite booster. Okay, what they're trying to do there, all the halides, fluorine, chlorine, iodine, bromine, will react with gold. And bromine is probably, I think, the one that's most reactive with gold. But so what they're doing there, according to Steve, is using a system to create a gold halide, gold bromine, gold chloride, whatever. And as such, if they were getting 4+ ounces per ton, that's pretty darn good. Now, that in general, and without looking at the stats of the particular system, I can't tell. But as a general rule, it's going to be substantially faster than cyanide. Okay. And so if he's doing a 4-hour cyanide bottle roll, wouldn't surprise me at all if he wasn't getting real good recovery percentages. Cyanide is not an aggressive lixiviant. So depending on the details of this, 4 ounces per ton, you've got something where you want to get really good recoveries, and it's generally going to be worth it to spend a little more effort on it. Okay, if you had a low grade, then get what you can easy and throw the rest in tailings. In our case, the system that we're using, the tailings is still getting leached. It just changes from an agitation tank leach to a pad leach. So it's, in 24 hours, we get so much, and then it goes out there and we can get most of the rest of it eventually. Okay. In the situation where you've got 4 ounces per ton, I suspect, and I would strongly recommend that you check to see how much gold is gravity recoverable when you do that fine thing. I mean, it doesn't take a lot, corduroy table, real fine sawtooth matting, anything, just see what happens. Because if you can recover 10 or 15% of the gold simply with essentially a sluice box, then that's the coarser gold is the stuff that's hardest to recover by leaching, assuming it's exposed to the leaching solution, because it just takes longer. So you're using a different, hey, Mr. Lodak, using a different recovery system that specializes in different size gold. So whatever coarse gold, yes, so even if it's 10%, if it costs you essentially zero to get it, I mean, you have a slurry flow somewhere. If you can run that somewhere where it'll tend to catch the gold, if you get 10% that way, it's probably 10% more than you would get with just the leach. If your biggest problem is crystal locking, that's a different story. And I don't know of anyone who's come up with a real good alternative to just grinding the bejesus out of it. But 325 mesh is fairly difficult to achieve on a production scale. It gets very expensive to grind an ore that fine. I mean, you're starting to get into things like mid-air collider pulverizers and stuff. It's getting pretty technical. You can get down to 200 mesh using conventional ball and rod milling without too much trouble. But especially 100 mesh, ball mills do 100 mesh. That's just kind of routine. But you can get down to 200 mesh without getting really ridiculous and expensive in general. Once you start getting below 200 mesh, your cost per ton and your throughput, they go the wrong way real quick. The cost per ton goes up, the throughput goes down. So with your ore, I would recommend, as preliminary tests, first of all, testing to see what kind of gravity separation may be helpful. Now, here's another thing that may or may not apply to your ore, Steve. Is the gold closely associated with another mineral that isn't the primary gangue? I.e., for example, is this real fine gold with, say, iron pyrite in a quartz matrix? In a case like that, you can theoretically crush it all up and then float off or gravity off the pyrite and throw away the quartz. And now, let's say you've gone from 4 ounces per ton to 40 ounces per ton. I mean, heck, you're almost to direct smelting now. That's some pretty good stuff. So, and say these are the things that you just start out with any ore. It sounds to me like there's been a significant amount of effort applied to this ore body already. And short of grinding it really fine and using a powerful lixiviant, I can't really, just off the top of my head say, hey, here's your magic bullet. The problem with real fine grinding, aside from being more expensive and slowing everything down, is those real fine solids are a pain in the ass to deal with. They're called slimes. And not to me, Brian. If you're talking to me, David, electrum and gold in rock works basically the same. Your lixiviant may be different, your choice of what you try and dissolve it, but crush it reasonably fine. Do a simple gravity separation, like say panning. Don't try and find the gold, just pan down to like 10% of the material. And what you're seeing is, can you concentrate the gold? Is it associated with a heavy mineral? In the case of Montana B, it is associated with iron minerals. They're not reliably magnetic. There's a lot of non-magnetic hematite, limonite, things like that. But in other cases, it might be almost entirely bound to a magnetic iron mineral. That might work. But I say, first try a gravity separation. Try a magnetic separation. See what happens. Those are fairly simple tests to apply to a new ore. And I know in your email, you also asked me a question of how I do my, excuse me, how I do my solid liquid separation. First of all, since I'm not trying to pulverize extremely fine, that makes the job easier. I can use settling and self-filtration to my advantage. I have a pad covered with, plastic, then drain pipes, a little bit of geotextile, then a sand bed, and I run my tailings out there, and I let the solution gravity filter through the sand bed, which gets me a pretty good, clean solution for running through the resin. That's great, Brian. If yours is associated with a magnetic mineral, typically magnetic hematite or magnetite, that's a fantastic way to concentrate if it works. Now, just remember, you're still losing something less than 10% of your gold to tailings. So don't just throw those away. Stockpile them for now, and they might come in handy later. Okay, honey bunny. But there's a good example, Steve, where Brian just tested the magnetic separation and it worked like a champ. We tried a magnetic separation of Montana B, didn't work worth a doodle. Okay, so back to square one on that. Unless you are really knowledgeable and have a lot of data, then you're pretty much just gonna do some by guess and by gosh. No, I have not. Let me write those down. Cyano. Now, you said you're using cyanide? Is that what you're using to strip your is that the complex that you were adsorb onto the resins? GP and Z. Okay. So what complex are you loading onto the resins, Steve? Again, that becomes an important thing. Okay. Um, there are probably alternatives. However, it's likely to be more dependent on the specific resin and the specific complex that you are using in your system. So, for example, if we don't use halides at this point here, you might come in very handy if we do want to try some halide leaching. But we're using what's called Eco Gold X, and part of the complexes are probably a cyanide, part of them are likely a thiosulfate. We have tantalizing indications that about 50% of the gold is A and 50% is B. There's several different processes we've tried that seem to indicate that. The particular resin that we are using, I mean, we've got a basic it's not thiourea. It's a basic ferrocyanide, and I think it's thiosulfate, or before they calcine it. But anyhow, we're probably getting thio complexes and cyanide complexes, maybe others, and we're using a basic chemistry. So that's what we're loading our resin with. And then we're stripping it with an acid thiourea solution at about 60 degrees centigrade. I'd talk to the resin manufacturers first to get a good idea of what they recommend for stripping a halide complex from their particular resins. If they're knowledgeable about their product, then they should have a pretty good idea of where to get started on the testing. Just a handy hint. The best resin with the Eco Gold X was, and let me write it down here for you. Oh, 104133, not 103. Okay. That was the fastest kinetics. However, we also had reasonable success with a Purigold resin. And I never can remember the particular, hello, glasses, number. Let me see. Purigold, MTA 5011. MTA 5011? That gave reasonable kinetics, not as good, but it seemed to be more selective and might be easier to regenerate. We're shut down for the winter here. We don't have good lab facilities that are, independent of the external weather. So we have a lot of stuff that we were in the middle of that we didn't get to continue with. But both of those resins seem to work. Although the Purigold seems to be more selective in just, catching the gold itself. but we have a lot of research to do. One thing that we found out that was quite interesting, Steve, was we tried direct smelting the resin. After all, theoretically, you should be able to load the resin to about 10% adsorbed ions, which means that you have a resin that costs $15 a pound. And let's see, a pound is 454 grams divided by 10 equals that times. So you got a resin that's $15 a pound, theoretically able to hold up to over $2,000 a pound in gold. There's absolutely no economic imperative to save the resin. So our original thought process was simple. We will load the resin and then smelt the resin. There was a problem with that. The problem was not only unexpected, but according to someone who theoretically should know, didn't seem to make any sense at all. And the reason is simple. It was vaporizing. Literally, we were losing, what was it, up to 50%?
Yes.
Okay, and under the
It should be noted that I was the first person to tell you I thought it was going away.
under the worst conditions, we were losing like 50% of the gold in the smelting process. We did some further tests and found out that even down to slightly elevated temperatures, as in 150 degrees Fahrenheit, we had significant losses of the gold from the resin. It was just extraordinarily bad. So, plan A, as plan A often does, went the way of the dodo. And then we went to try and stripping with electrolytic deposition. And that seems to be working reasonably well. Again, we're still doing research, which, if we'd have been able to work all winter, we might have got it done. But we still got a lot to do. And we also have to do more besides research. We've also got to go mine the rock, crush the rock, process the rock, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of limits how much we can do, how fast. But be careful if you try even drying the resin to make sure you're not losing gold. The chloride gold complex was tested by the Bureau of Mines, U.S. Bureau of Mines, I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
And when they took basically a silica sample that they had doped with gold chloride and did basically a direct smelt on it, they lost about 5% of the gold. When they put iron pyrite in there, they lost 95% of the gold at 400 degrees, I think it was. It was insane. Okay, this is why the expert said that can't happen. It's like, can't tell that to the Bureau of Mines. Okay, I tried to get someone who was in a position to do a bunch of research to investigate this apparent phenomenon. And they basically said, yeah, it can't happen. So I'm not interested. It's like, okay. If you think it can't happen, I probably don't want you investigating it anyway. Because, you're going to come at it with the predetermined outcome in mind as opposed to keeping an open mind. It was shocking to me. Eva said she thought that might be the case early on. I thought it was.
You told me I was full of it.
Yeah. Okay, take care, Steve. Absolutely. Theoretically, somewhere. Let me see if I can look this up. Find me a search. Where's the search? There it is. Outlook? Okay, it should be. Camp. Camp. Okay.
I think it was Chris that sent us the.
Yeah, but I sent it to someone else, I think. 21. What the fuck? Where is this? It's an old one. But why is it giving me a bunch of stuff from President Trump? Weird. Camp. Let me see here. Sportsman's Warehouse. I can understand that. That must be used in the thing there. I'm trying to remember who was the person.
Rick, wasn't it? Or Rich?
Yeah, Rick was the guy. But that's not the one.
Courtney, I believe, was the lady.
Courtney. I think you're right. Come on. Going blind sucks. There we go. Okay, I think it was Chris.
Chris sent it to us originally.
Yeah. I'm still looking here. Oh, come on. Give me a break. Nice if it had more discussion. I mean, it doesn't have the captions. Okay. That's nice. Hello. Oh my God. Chris. Yeah, that would be nice. Instructions for Eco Goldex. Chris is really good at finding stuff on the internet. Use ball mills near Mars. These are ones I sent to him. Good question. I'm trying to find it, but I'm not seeing it. I can't find it right off of the bat here, but it was, I think it was pretty sure U.S. Bureau of Mines.
It was the Bureau of Mines.
Gold volatilization. You know. Let's see. Shaggy says, God bless you. Let's see. U.S. Bureau of Mines gold volatilization. Let's see if I possibly spelled all that. By golly, I did. Yeah, right. Well, that's a bad search methodology because it's giving me everything on U.S. Bureau of Mines. Let's see if I can, use quote marks, don't you? That's how you do that. Okay, let's see if we can do that. Of course not. I hate search engines.
Sorry, Bear.
Gold volatilization. Try that. Yeah, see, they're talking about the volatility of gold in the market. CHLORIDE. Chloride volatilization of gold known for 90 years. Never been successfully used. Full process analysis on volatilizing gold. Chloride to volatilize gold. Apparently,
You can try gold volatilization in refining or in leaching.
I don't know. Research a process of gold volatilization of gold from.
Oh.
Huh.
Okay.
So anyhow, high temperature vaporization chemistry in the gold chlorine. Okay. So apparently, you can convert it to the chloride and then volatilize it. And here's another interesting thing. I don't know, Jean-Francois. I'm sure I've got it somewhere, somehow, some way, in some place, in some something, somewhere.
I will see if I can help him find it this
But
week
it's
and
like
get to
I
it.
can't find it, and all the shit if the search thing won't do it. Let's see. Eco Gold X. Yeah, right. I can click that, but I don't think it's there. Richard. Leach results. I don't know. Nothing there. Good Lord, that's all I got? Yeah, good luck. Now, it doesn't look like I'll be able to find it.
I will see if I can find it so we can send it to everybody.
Yeah, that's chloride to volatilize gold. But you prefer not to volatilize it if possible. I did see a very interesting methodology of electro recovery of gold from complex solution where they would pulse it. They'd turn on the voltage and plate copper onto the cathode, then stop the voltage and let the gold replace the copper on the cathode, then hit the voltage again, plate more copper on top, and like that. So they were using it purely to plate copper out of the solution so they can then use the metallic copper to cement the gold out of the solution. You know? Yeah, it'd be interesting, Jean-Francois. It was so funny when I sent an article to someone who's supposedly an expert says, it can't happen. No, I didn't send it. I think I said, I've even got an article that indicates this can happen. They basically say, I don't believe it. It's like,
I remember you sending a copy to Rich.
To Rick?
Or Rich, yes.
Okay.
Over there. Rich or Rick, I believe it was. I remember
It's
you were
Camp.
talking to him. Yeah. About and sending. I remember you at least talking to him about the thing.
Pure light, pure light, pure light. Thiosulfate. No, that's not it. Can you close that? Yes.
Oh, wow.
Said I sent it to Rick, huh? Yeah, good
I
luck.
believe it was.
Yeah, well, it's not. I can't find it.
So
Williams
degenerate.
Richard.
I will help you find it later.
Yeah, let's say it'd be nice if I could just
Just
click a
press
button
the-
and get a decent thing. Let's see. Container. Inbox. Preliminary report. Nope. I don't see it, anyone. But anyhow, hey Lars, how's it going? Well, it's better for you to crush ore than the ore to crush you, Lars. Yeah, Shaggy, it's called elutriation, and it's a form of gravity separation. You generally have to have a fairly good classification, but not super tight. You have to have good control over the upwelling velocity. But say I haven't gotten much experience with that. Oh, oh, dearie. See, I can't go too late with this, or I won't get to sleep in time to get up at 5:30 in the morning. So how's things going, Lars? Got any numbers off of that big vein you found? Um, kind of lost my train of thought here. Let's see, it was time. Oh, volatilization of gold. Yeah, it can't happen. Trust me. Apparently, they're using it to as part of an extraction setup too. Uh, a little gold so far, huh? What have you got for pulverization? You got that um, Action Mining mill, didn't you? That should do a pretty good job of grinding it up. Smack some of that Action Mining mill and then hand pan it and see what happens. It's surprising though, Lars. One time we got a sample and it was just kind of a gray quartz, but it didn't have any significant mineralization or anything that I could detect. It didn't look very exciting at all. And we crushed it up, and the spot test we were using at the time just went crazy. And I thought, well, that seems like something's going horribly awry here. We sent it out for assay. It came back 40 ounces to the ton. It's like, okay, good stuff. Unfortunately, we were not able to track it down and exploit it. Sounds like fun, Shaggy. Um, we're basically next week is a bunch of to test. I'd usually go with the pan just because I can control it so well. I know what's happening. But if you're familiar with your shaker tables and your grind sizes, that's a good way to get an idea of how much gravity gold you got in there. Yeah, Shaggy, this week we got a bunch of doctor's appointments and stuff, so we're not going to get much done. And then hopefully the week after we'll be up. Up. We'll be down. South is down generally. Around Whitehall again, doing some more construction and getting a little money lined up for the trip to Boston. We made a few bucks this week. The By the way, the picture that you see is the thumbnail for this. That was taken from the job site, looking across the valley there. It's very pretty. As far as we know, no bad news. The word from Eva's doctor is that as far as he can tell, the cancer is gone. So, you know, can't get much better news than that. And I was a little sore after working out this week because I was working on scaffolding, and it's been a while since I've been on the monkey bars, and so I was using some muscles I'm not used to. The actual work itself wasn't very physically demanding, just a lot of little stuff. Eva's back got a bit of a workout just from bagging up styrofoam and collecting the aluminum siding.
I just wish we'd gotten more.
Yeah, well, I think let's see. Let me check this out here. I think Jimmy said, "Oh, give me a break, you stupid thing." Okay, no, it's not. That's not what's going on at all. Messages. There we are. Yeah. Jimmy said, "Wow, too bad you couldn't take it all."
Yeah.
Yep. So, but anyhow, again, we had a good time and got some interesting. It wasn't too cold. It was around freezing at night, and the camper was fine, and so we had a good time. Saw more than a few deer at times. It's amazing, but
Really?
we did a good time job. We stayed to complete the job. I do not like leaving a job partially done if you don't have to, especially if it's in an unsecure situation. I mean, we stripped all the siding. We got 2 walls covered with Tyvek, and half of the third wall with Tyvek, and then snow came in. And well, that's a problem, Lars. So it started snowing, and it's like, yeah, we can work in the snow. Let's get this son of a gun done. And after about 30 minutes, it cleared up, got sunny, and got the job done. Headed home, and it was snowing more up here than it was down there. When we came over the Boulder Hill there, it was slushy at the top there on the freeway. There was a little snow, sticking to the grass and stuff like that. But that night, next morning, wake up and there's over 6 inches of snow on the ground. And when we were coming back, it was snowing at the time. So we timed it almost perfectly, got the job done, got the heck out of Dodge, got home in time to beat the weather, and that's how everything worked out well. So hopefully we'll do the same thing in another week. We hopefully we'll be there like 5 or 6 days, is the plan, as it sounds, and we'll see what he's got planned. One thing I did that was not ideal. Now I'm really going to have trouble because I can't see anything. This little knuckle here, you may see a little hole right there. When I was opening the door on the cargo trailer, when I was swinging the latch, I hit some stuff, and I thought it was just the paint chips that were there, but apparently there was a splinter sticking out, and the splinter went from that hole to about there, but was not visible. There wasn't anything in the end we could pick. I could feel it. I couldn't see it under the skin. It was in actually pretty deep. So I had to let it fester a couple of days. And then the second day we were working out there. We just opened the hole up a little bit and Eva squeezed it, and it just launched itself out of that hole.
Dear Lord.
I mean, it wound up about here laying on the skin. What, little one?
Dudes in dresses
Uh-huh.
can join the Daughters of the American Revolution.
The Daughters of the American Revolution now takes dongs and dresses, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Apparently their membership is dropping like a rock.
Yeah,
Gee, I wonder why.
Can't imagine. It's such a consistent phenomenon. You wonder why everybody hasn't figured it out now. You know? But yeah, it was really unpleasant. I couldn't hardly bend I could only bend it about that much because it hurt too much up here. Now I can get it that much. It's not so extremely painful. It's a little painful up here, but mainly it's just stiff. You know, here's the other one. Pretty darn close. Some of us are eating. Well, fine. I wouldn't think Lars would be overly sensitive. Yeah, that would. I'm thinking painkillers would be a good idea on that, Harry.
Yeah, and there's a Sons of organization as well. So.
Yeah, there's certain times where it's like, without Novocaine, you're not touching that son of a gun. That's all there is to it. So anyhow, it's hard to say whatever is going to happen next week. And then right after that, we'll be getting ready for the trip to Boston. Not much time, slack time to prepare. We got several days. It's not going to be crazy. But so we're pretty much busy, I think, until next winter now. We got stuff to do pretty much until next winter. There'll be occasional days where it's slack time, but I think we'll stay pretty busy. Crazy as your department?
Oh,
wow. Man, competition.
I gotta show you this. Won't be able to show the peeps on the. Look at that! It's a real animal.
Some kind of a nudibranch?
They're called leaf sheep. They live in the sea and they graze on algae.
Yeah.
Costa Ciela Kuroshimai.
Yes. It is really cool.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Looks like some form of nudibranch. What color is loaded Eco Goldex? It depends on how loaded it is. In our case, it's generally kind of yellowish to a brownish color. Let's see.
It's deep ruby red when it's fully loaded.
Ruby red?
Yeah, 5 different shades.
Goldex?
No.
The resin.
Yeah, the Eco Goldex is generally about the color of pea.
Sometimes smells a lot like it too.
No, it smells a lot like fish paste.
Okay, there's Eco Goldex solution right there.
When it doesn't have suspended stuff in it, it's generally a medium yellow.
Yeah, it's yellow to a tannish color of some sort.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, I wonder where Tricky Dicky is. Hope things are going well. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Pretty much shaggy. Yeah. Anyhow, oh, let's see. So yeah, it feels good to basically have stuff to do. And how did that work out, Brian? Well, I presume you know how to do that, honey bunny. Oh, red when hot, yellow when cold. Huh. He says his Eco Gold X is red when hot and yellow when cold. I don't know if we really had any above ambient temperature that I can think of.
The highest temperature I recorded was 35 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, which is ambient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so I presume the tinfoil hat goddess will have a lot of interesting things to say today because there's been a lot of interesting crap happening.
Totally ridiculous.
But
there is absolutely nothing happening.
We shall see. We shall see.
There is no news.
You'll zinc drop next Saturday. Okay. Good luck on that, Brian. Let us know how it works out. So, anyhow, that's basically it. Trying to think. Yeah, once we get back, we just got a crap load of stuff to jump into. Before we leave, I still got to redrain the latest precipitation off the ponds. I'm going to see about firing up the Stutenroth and running a little bit of top of the hill through it. So I'll have that when we go to see Jason out at Flower Gold Wizards. See how his stuff works. That seems like a plan to me. Let's see. According to this, it'll be your turn in about 11 minutes, little one, or are you going to be ready for that? Well, I'm just wondering because otherwise I may have to take a short break.
Well,
I think I can last 11
minutes.
minutes.
I will take in a minute. I have to go do something first.
Okay.
If you really insist.
Oh. Well, if you're washing the carbon 5 times with hot aqua regia, are you then neutralizing the aqua regia and then reacting it with the zinc? Otherwise, it's just going to dissolve the zinc, I would think. So I presume you neutralize the aqua regia first before putting in the zinc. Oh my goodness. It is. After a slow winter, it's really nice to work your muscles a bit.
I'm going to need you to write down a number here in a minute.
Yeah. I saw a part of that video too, Rob Bob, but I say it's just I want to find a mine. Just playing with gold is not my thing. But he's done a great job of building his channel. I'm very impressed with how well he's worked the system and how successful he's been. I think that's great.
Okay. You're going to need to write down a number for me. Hi, everybody.
Okay.
34 trillion with a T.
Yeah.
599 billion with a B. 374 million with an M. And the rest is going faster than light. Hi, everybody.
I don't think we'll break the 34.6 barrier tonight.
Oh, we probably will. We did
It's
last
gonna
week.
get close. Oh.
Well, I hope everyone is having an absolutely fantabulous week. Let's see if there's any mining news. Not really anything looking hugely interesting here. But there is some odd news today. In case you missed it, there is a bird flu outbreak going on right now, H5N1. Okay? We all know about this whole bird flu thing. Well, the H5N1 is behaving a little bit unusually this time around. Recent tests have confirmed the presence of bird flu in dairy cow milk in the states of Texas and Kansas, alarming U.S. health officials, as reported on Monday. The strain identified by the Texas Animal Health Commission is the infamous H5N1, which has historically caused epidemics among bird populations and occasionally spilled over to humans. The specific strain is now implicated in illness among mature dairy cattle in Texas, Kansas, and New Mexico, leading to symptoms such as reduced milk production and poor appetite. This development follows closely on the heels of an announcement from Minnesota where goats reportedly contracted bird flu amid a go away, you stupid thing, concurrent avian outbreak. This situation marked the first known instance of highly pathogenic avian influenza in the U.S. directly affecting livestock. The U.S. Department of Agriculture reassures the public that the commercial milk supply remains unaffected and safe for consumption. This assurance is backed by the strict dairy industry regulation that only allows milk from healthy animals into the supply chain, and by virtue of pasteurization, which is known to destroy harmful bacteria and viruses, including the influenza virus.
Oh, another thing against raw milk, huh?
A USDA statement confirmed. At this stage, there is no concern about the safety of the commercial milk supply or that this circumstance poses a risk to consumer health. No mutations that would suggest an increased risk of human transmission have been identified in the virus found in cattle, the federal government stated. Concerns in Texas arose 3 weeks back when the dairy commissioner noted an unusual sickness in dairy cattle, which was initially dubbed mystery dairy cow disease.
Ooh, I like.
Beside a notable decrease in milk production, the cows exhibited fatigue and decreased feed intake. The Texas Department of Agriculture initiated an immediate investigation, which included bird flu testing, according to its spokeswoman, Erin Robinson. The assumption is these cattle contracted the virus from wild birds based on test results from Texas and the USDA's findings. Notably, affected livestock are exhibiting recovery within a week to 10 days without the need to cull, unlike in poultry, where entire flocks are often destroyed to control spread. Since 2022, the U.S. has seen significant poultry losses, numbering around 80 million with an M birds due to avian flu outbreaks. About 10% of milking cows are estimated to be impacted in the herds involved, reported veterinarian and biosecurity expert Michael Payne from UC Davis. He emphasizes this infection does not replicate the severe consequences seen in avian flocks. The presence of bird flu in raw milk samples was confirmed from cattle in 2 Kansas dairies and 1 in Texas, along with respiratory samples from another Texas dairy operation. Agencies including the Food and Drug Administration and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are actively involved in this evolving situation, with Iowa also vigilant given its sizable dairy sector. U.S. dairy farmers have stepped up biosecurity measures such as reducing farm access and limiting personnel presence. Having been seen in 48 different mammal species previously, according to Payne, the transmission of avian influenza to ruminants was somewhat anticipated. The Associated Press Health and Science Department received support from Howard Hughes Medical Institute, Science and Education Media Group, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, Avian flu has spread to a couple more species. Thankfully, we're not looking at culling in this situation, okay? But the goddess does have to wonder, and in another piece of unrelated news that has to do entirely with cattle, of course, you may have noticed that a couple of days ago, our dearly beloved federal government and the collection of kleptocrats in Mordor on the Potomac passed once again in the dead of night a 1.2 trillion with a T dollar omnibus continuing resolution thingy widget gizmo, whatever you want to call it. Buried in that pile of steaming excrement was a nice little provision that nobody wanted to pass in the first place that said that all U.S. cattle are going to be RFID tagged or something similar. Yeah, they're going to bug all our cows. Go figure this one. And they're also expanding this groundbreaking, life-saving, absolutely fantabulous mRNA vaccine technology to veterinary, specifically our food supply. Yeah. Oh, and I'm sure it's nothing important, but the DOJ is also starting an entire new bureau, something to do with red flag, blah, 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 2A, blah, blah, blah thing, where they'll be upping their tracking of various types of extremists and things, and red flagging a lot of stuff. But it it's absolutely, totally, and completely normal shit. Totally. Go DOJ. Yeah, go DOJ. We love the DOJ. We really, really love the DOJ. The DOJ is fantastic. All hail DOJ. And in case you missed the news today, you see there's this rapper dude whose name is PJ Diddy Combs or P. Diddy Coombs or something along those lines. Well, anyway, this P. Diddy dude, would you believe the Department of Homeland Security and a whole bunch of other feds raided his house in Hollyweird? And they raided his other house in Miami. Because apparently this rapper dude is implicated in a major international child sex trafficking ring or something similar. Fortunately for him, apparently he got tipped off because he was able to get to the airport and get in his nice private jet. And his nice private jet landed in Antigua or some Caribbean place where there isn't extradition. Run, diddly. They're calling him Diddler online right now. It's rather humorous. But we shall see what we shall saw. But apparently, yeah, they raided his house. There seems to have been an outbreak this week in the matter of all kinds of teachers and other upstanding, fine leftist citizens being arrested for pedophilia and things. Yeah, go figure. 2 teachers in San Diego in the same week. Aww. Must be something in the water. Oh, and a veterinarian and much beloved National Dog Show judge unfortunately will not be able to make it to California to pick up his baby that's being born to a surrogate pretty soon because this soon to be single dad was posting on some very, very nasty forums about how he likes his partner's ages to be in the single digits. Yeah, and other things. Very, very bizarre. The goddess has to wonder why it is that single men are allowed to buy babies from women. But then again, the goddess kind of sort of has to wonder why people can just randomly buy babies with no oversight from women anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong. If a woman wants to play rent a womb and make babies for people, well, you know, This is a her body, her choice situation. However, the goddess does think there should be some regulation or oversight or something involved here. Because we have noted in the last couple of years that there seems to be a very interesting statistical anomaly that indicates that a whole lot of the kind of people that buy children like this tend to want to buy children for nefarious purposes. Obviously, that's just a coincidence. The goddess's tinfoil hat is probably way too tight on this one. I mean, after all, what can you say? What is the gold and silver ratio, and why should we pay attention to it? Well, you'll often hear precious metal investors talk about the gold silver ratio. So, what is it, and why does it matter? It tells you how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold, given the current spot price of both metals. In other words, the price of gold in ounces of silver. So the price of one money in ounces of another money, which is a very good thing. For instance, as I'm writing this article, the current gold-silver ratio is just over 87 to 1. That means it would require about 87 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Since the gold-silver ratio tells us the price of gold relative to silver and vice versa, we can look at historic trends and draw conclusions about the prices of both metals. For example, the current gold-silver ratio reveals silver is significantly underpriced compared to gold in historic terms. Geologists in the mining industry estimate there are somewhere between 19 and 20 ounces of silver in the earth for every ounce of gold. Okay? This provides a natural starting point for a gold-silver ratio of 20 to 1. From a mining perspective, annual silver production averages around 800 million ounces per year. Gold production, a little over 100 million ounces. These are rounded numbers. That gives you a gold-silver ratio of around 8 to 1. Governments have set gold-silver ratios to control the value of their coinage for centuries. The earliest recorded imposed gold-silver ratio was King Menes of ancient Egypt, when he set the ratio at 2.5 to 1. Rome set a gold-silver ratio of 8 to 1 in the early years of the empire in 210 BCE. As gold and silver flowed into Rome through its contest, the ratio fluctuated, rising as high as 12 to 1. Julius Caesar established a gold-silver ratio of 11.5 to 1, and Augustus bumped it up to 11.75 to 1. Around the ancient world, the gold-silver ratio, ranged between 6 to 1 and 12 to 1, with Asian and Middle Eastern empires valuing silver slightly more, setting slightly narrower ratios. The U.S. Congress fixed a gold-silver ratio of 15 to 1 in the 1792 Coinage Act. This compared to a 15.5 to 1 ratio set by France in 1803. A bimetallic monetary system proved to be unwieldy, and European countries began to demonetize silver in the mid-19th century. The U.S. followed the lead of England, Portugal, Germany, and other nations and established a gold standard in the Coinage Act of 1873. The demonetization left the gold-silver ratio to float freely. By World War II, the gold-silver ratio had spread to as much as 40 to 1. In the modern era, the gold-silver ratio averaged between 40 to 1 and 60 to 1. Since the U.S. completely abandoned the gold standard in 1972, there appears to be some correlation between the gold-silver ratio and central bank money creation. The spread tends to drop when the Fed turns up the printing press, and spreads when central banks attempt to tighten monetary policy. We saw this happen with the gold-silver ratio contracting during the pandemic and widening over the last 2 years as the Fed has tried to battle price inflation. We've also seen when the gold-silver ratio gets far above the high end of that average, it tends to return to the mean with a vengeance. For instance, in 2020, the gold-silver ratio set a record. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Of 123 to 1. As a COVID hysteria gripped the world and then plunged to around 60 to 1 as central banks around the world cranked up the money creation scene to cope with governments shutting down economies. In another example of this snapback, the gold silver ratio fell to 30 to 1 in 2011 after rising to over 80 to 1 during the money creation of the Great Recession in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. From a historical perspective, when you see gold silver ratios well above that average, it tells you silver is underpriced compared to gold. And there's a strong possibility silver will go on a bull run to close that gap. Historically, this has often happened in the midst of a gold bull rally, with silver outperforming gold. Unfortunately, past performance does not guarantee future results. The goddess wishes. Ooh, yes, I do. Many other factors go into the price of gold and silver, including central bank monetary policy, government fiscal policy, supply and demand dynamics, geopolitical happenings, and technical factors. However, the gold silver ratio is a revealing bit of data that can help savvy investors project the price movement of silver. So, yeah, something to watch.
I don't know if you realized how weird that sounded to me. Past performance is no guarantee of future success. Yeah, the goddess wishes.
Yeah, the goddess wishes, all right. Oh,
She's
yeah.
talking about me.
Oh, I am not. I'm talking about my silver. Silver to the moon. Just saying. And in other bizarre news this week, well, not really bizarre news, but very uncomfortable and unpleasant news. You may have noticed that there was a terrorist attack in Moscow. And Mad Vlad the Impaler, or at least Mad Vlad the Impaler's government, yeah, well, in this case, he was pretty darn close to impaling a few people. Yeah, Mad Vlad's government is really, shall we say, aggressive when it comes to interrogation techniques. Even the goddess was a little surprised to see them rolling an unconscious and very, very battered up terrorist into court in a freaking wheelchair. That was something you gotta kind of wonder about. You also have to kind of wonder about AMLO down there in Mexico. In case you missed this wonderful canard, AMLO has been talking to Lord Malarkey. Insofar as anyone ever bothers to talk to Lord Malarkey, AMLO has been talking to Lord Malarkey. The upshot of this conversation concerning our southern non-border was quite simple. The president of Mexico is an extortionist, but then again, we all knew that since the president of Mexico is also a corrupt, cartel-controlled person. You know, I mean, that's just the state of affairs here. Apparently, if our government does not meet a long list of Mexican demands, like massive amounts of money and a whole bunch of other shit, they're going to crank up the pipeline and send even more illegal aliens over our border. And you might want to check and make sure everybody's measles vaccinations are up to date. Measles and the measles booster for some people, because apparently measles is making a drastic comeback in a few areas of the country. And you may also actually decide to wear a mask for this one when, you see people hacking up a lung here and there. Because the other thing that is making drastic inroads in certain parts of the country is drug-resistant TB. Our dearly beloved federal government, including the CDC, would have you believe this is due to the very small minority of rabid anti-vaxxers that never vaxxed their children with measles in the first place and never had their children tested for TB in the first place. The disease outbreak patterns, they indicate that that's pretty much utter bullshit, but what else is new? Everything the federal government says is utter bullshit anyway. But just to say, we are not alone in having a government that excels in bullshit. The British government's doing a very good job too. They decided to send out a survey to a whole bunch of female, real, actual woman, female athletes, and female identifying athletes to ask everybody anonymously how they felt about dudes in dresses competing in women's sports and being in women's dressing rooms and in women's bathrooms. Unsurprisingly to the goddess or anyone else who has the sense that God gave a doorknob, all of the chicks, the real ones, said they didn't like this at all. All the dudes in dresses said they had no problem with this at all. Funny how that works out. Just saying. Oh, and in case you missed it, we're all boycotting Planet Fitness. The goddess is canceling her membership this week. I was willing to overlook the fact that corporate said that if there happened to be any dudes in dresses in my town that were members of Planet Fitness and decided that they wanted to use the women's dressing rooms, they absolutely can. And I'm supposed to suck it up and use a stall to change if I'm uncomfortable. I was kind of willing to overlook that because, quite frankly, LA Fitness has the same policy. All of the major gyms have the same policy. Okay. But then these incidents came up, like the incident in Alaska, where, the woman had her membership canceled because, and I do agree, she took a picture of a fully clothed dude that was shaving in the ladies' room. He was not unclothed at the time, okay? Well, now things have gotten really weird in that particular
girl.
Yeah, there was a 12-year-old girl in there, which is why she took the picture in the first place, okay? That was one thing. Since then, the dude in question has doubled down. More pictures have been taken of him after Planet Fitness lied like a rug on social media and said the picture was fake and that was not their dressing room. Yeah. Well, that turned out to be a blazing lie, which everybody knew. Well, new pictures have emerged that prove this is a lie that show the same dude wearing a bustier and an ugly skirt that don't match and flats. I mean, he has zero taste in shoes, people, in the same dressing room. And females in Planet Fitnesses around the country are now being told if you're uncomfortable sharing your dressing room with a dude, you need to change in the stall and keep your friggin' mouth shut. And this is when the stories started coming out of the woodwork. All these little regional news reports that never rose above local level, going back years, started showing up. Of Planet Fitnesses in, for instance, Georgia that had registered sex offenders that assaulted their employees, their female employees, and also exposed themselves to little children and other things. And Planet Fitness did nothing to protect their employees or their customers, the female ones. And then there was the case that came up the other day of a dude his size with a full beard that was not even trying to look like a chick, that was merely sitting in the dressing room wearing his boxers with Mr. Happy standing at attention, oogling every female around. And Planet Fitness did nothing about this either. So, yeah, the goddess has come to the conclusion it's bad enough that Planet Fitness chooses not to protect their female customers who feel uncomfortable. The majority here, okay? But when you won't protect your employees, when you will turn around and add insult to injury by telling people like me, if you don't like it, you can change in a stall, when you will assign an employee to stand as an escort in your dressing room while the dude makes everybody uncomfortable, then no, you're not getting my money anymore. They can stuff it, okay? That's all I'm going to say on that issue. That is all I have to say about that. Planet Fitness can stuff it. Now, I am going to find out whether any of my local gyms also have this regressive, disgusting, misogynistic policy. And if they do, I'm going to start making noises. But in the meantime,
solid cloud cover here. What are we supposed to see, Rob? Aurora?
well, we're supposed to have aurora.
Well, let's see here.
We are supposed to have aurora.
Not going to do us any good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be possible from here.
Oh, well. But in more pleasant news, another strong gold up leg looks imminent as the bull flag completes. We're going to talk about those weird technical signals.
Rock Eater, I do the comedy sign language interpretation.
Yeah, they are trying to stuff it in rather nefarious ways. It's ridiculous. After almost 4 years of going nowhere, gold has this month broken out into what looks set to be by far the biggest bull market to date. It would be surprising if it wasn't, given the fundamental outlook, which is for currency and societal collapse, implosion of the debt and derivatives markets, wars, general chaos, and mayhem. And just another random Tuesday, you know. Fortunately for investors, the situation is now clear with respect to gold and gold investments and easy to show. Our very long-term chart going all the way back to the start of the year 2000 shines a giant searchlight on gold's situation. The chart reveals that beyond the great 2000s bull market, the price has marked out a giant cup and handle base, which is of such magnitude that it can support a massive new bull market. The reason for this update now is it has just this month, at last, broken out of the top of the completed base pattern. Yeah, big cup and handle. Okay, so yeah, big cup and handle. If you happen to believe in that stuff, gonna be a doozy to the moon. You know. Yeah. Rock Eater, he does sign language interpretation. It gives him something and it makes him feel productive. Okay, we let him have fun back there. It's fine. The goddess is oblivious to that, you know. Anyway, gold is at 21.69, which is not terrible. Silver's at $24.58. Platinum's at $900. Palladium is holding at $988, and rhodium is holding at $4,300. So we're looking good in that regard. And around the country, people are noting that premiums are looking really good as well at the moment, which is an excellent indicator that it is time for you to go wandering down to your local coin shop and back up the truck and buy some gold and silver. Just saying. Because there is a whole lot of weird stuff going on in the financial world these days. The federal government has once again put out a bunch of statistics that are absolutely unsupported by reality. And sooner or later, the general public may even notice this. It could happen. Stranger things have happened than this, you know. And Bitcoin, by the way, is doing pretty darn good as well. Broke 70,000. The goddess
Take care, Jean-Francois.
Has noted that more and more of the crypto bros are saying they're expecting this pump and dump to top 90,000 before the dump portion starts, which would be pretty darn good run, I would say, you know. Good night, Jean-Francois. Bonsoir. But at any rate, yeah, financial things are looking a little weird. More people are ordinary folks. We're not just talking, you know, influencers and shit, since they're not people. They're very weird caricatures that may or may not be real these days with all the AI going around. Ordinary people are having more and more trouble getting their money out of their bank accounts. Ordinary people who bank with Chase, in particular, are finding it more and more common to be getting emails from Chase saying that their account has been frozen for suspicious activity. And, you know, they're not going to be able to access their money for 10 to 30 business days. We're not talking business folk here. We're not talking billionaires here. We're not talking influencers here. We're talking Mr. and Mrs. America. are discovering that it's kind of tough at times to get your money out of your bank account, which is a little bit bizarre and unaccountable. Just saying. And in other weird news from the financial world, in case you missed it, President Trump is the luckiest person in the world, apparently. The left is very annoyed because this morning, when Letitia was looking forward to stealing all of his property, and violating several constitutional amendments while doing so, an appellate court reduced the bond to $175 million, and President Trump said he'd be happy to pay that. And the appellate court also said that, yeah, no, you can't say that Mr. Trump's sons are not allowed to run his business. You can't say that Mr. Trump's not allowed to access his business or his money. That's kind of sort of like against the rules. So more shit got overturned there, and the left is very, very annoyed. The left is very, very annoyed about a lot of things at the moment. That's not exactly a good thing. The problem with dealing with nutballs and psychotics is quite simple. When psychotics have a psychotic break and they can't hold up their delusional little worldview anymore, they do one of two things. They either start killing people or they kill themselves. The question is, are these people going to do number two before they do number one? One can only hope. Just saying. Judging from online, you never know these days. You never know in any regard. But, in light of this bird flu news, the goddess is going to be keeping a closer eye on the prices of powdered milk, infant formula. Those are the two biggies that are going to be constricted by a milk problem. And I'm keeping a stronger eye on birds because once again, we got a 10-pound bag of chicken leg quarters this week. There were 13 legs in the chicken leg quarter bag.
Not this week. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
13 this time. Now, granted, that is down from the 16 in the last bag, but that still is really that shows that these birds are coming off the line at the earliest possible moment where they can break even at market weight. Okay, that's not looking all that great. The goddess also noticed that large eggs are now once again tottering right on the absolute minimum size by law for a large egg. And medium eggs are not teetering on the top of their scale. They're in the center of their scale, which means we have stressed flocks and young birds in our batteries. That's not good, okay? Eggs are a very volatile indicator, but they're still an indicator. Another indicator the goddess noticed this week that everybody should take a look for. In our area, the gap between regular gasoline and diesel was a staggering 30 cents, was the lowest I saw. The average is 50 cents. That gap is normally $1, okay? Because red dye diesel is normally 50 cents less or so, depending on your state. In California, I think it's closer to 62 cents. But red dye is usually about 50 cents cheaper than standard diesel. When red dye and regular gasoline prices are inverted, the economy is not doing very well. I know that comes as an utter and complete shock to you people, but it is, in fact, true. And speaking of the economy not doing very well, fast food workers, specifically pizza workers in California, are very upset and distressed today. Because in light of that wonderful law that was passed by Mr. Gavin Newsom, the one that raised the prices for fast food employees, the minimum wage on fast food restaurants, or restaurants that are franchised, blah, 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 the whole long list, to $20 an hour. The pizza places, in particular in this case, started rolling out their emails, letting people go and downsizing their force. They started specifically with their delivery drivers. And lo and behold, people are surprised this is happening. They're also going to be raising prices, by the way. McDonald's has already announced that they're going to be cutting their staff like crazy and raising their prices. The only place in California, the only what you could call fast food or chain restaurant that's not going to be facing a bloodbath over this is Panera Bread. Why, you might ask? Well, because Panera Bread bakes bread and sells bread on their menu as a standalone item. That's why. So they're not a restaurant, they're a bakery, maybe. I'm pretty sure there's some sort of a hazy justification for this, okay? The real reason? It turns out that Gavin Newsom and the CEO of Panera Bread are schoolmates. They were bestest buddies in school together. And this generous, fantabulous CEO donated a whole hell of a lot of money to Gavin's campaigns. But of course, that has nothing to do with it. The goddess is sure of that. And the goddess is wondering how long it will be before McDonald's comes up with a way to start baking and selling bread as a standalone item so that they can get out from under this, because this is going to be a business killer.
Don't forget the farms in Oregon, too.
Oh, yeah. If you happen to be living in Oregon and you have not yet shown the good sense to start packing, and you keep a few chickens, or you keep a few pigs, or you keep a few goats, or you keep a few cows, and you have concrete pads or rock beds or fibrous drainage systems.
Prepared surfaces.
Prepared surfaces, yes, that's the word we're looking for. Prepared surfaces. And there is a possibility that any runoff from your private property may somewhere run into state water. Congratulations, you're a CAFO. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with this acronym, CAFO, CAFO, Confined Animal Feeding Operation, is basically one of the meanings. What they're saying is if you decided to build your farm facilities for your little homestead the way you should, with moisture control and with prepared surfaces for your animals in your chicken coops, in your stables, in your barns, etc., so that your animals can have nice clean feet and a nice dry environment and be happy. And at any time, your animals might possibly be fed in that confined area. Congrats, you just became a CAFO. And under this law, if your runoff or any potential runoff from your property potentially impacts a state water source,
You need a permit.
You need a permit. And if you don't do hundreds of thousands of dollars in upgrades to protect the state water, um, they can tell you you're not allowed to keep your animals anymore. You know, just saying. And they have a few other pesky water regulations that are severe overreach that will basically impact not just actual CAFOs, but smallholders, homesteaders, self-sufficient people, etc., etc. You know, your little 100 square foot chicken coop. Yeah, this is a little bit much, even in the typical government overreach department. Just saying, you know, hmm, no idea what's going to be going on. But we shall see. I think a lot of other states are going to be watching this to see if Oregon gets away with it, because there are a few other states that would like to be able to do things like that. And they certainly have the impetus to watch Oregon to see what they can get away with. These guys are getting a little bit rambunctious and a little bit ambitious as well in terms of what they're looking at. Yeah, that's my thought too, Shaggy. You never
They will
know
when they
what's
get
going to
hungry.
happen.
They will when they get hungry.
Yeah, they certainly will. Oh, and in another federal case, a federal judge decided that illegal immigrants are allowed to carry firearms. You know, just one of those things. Apparently, there's a whole lot of veterans that can be barred from owning weapons, but people who are in this country illegally have the right to. So we shall see what happens with that. Very, very bizarre. But we shall see what we shall saw. At any rate, this is the time of the year when once again the goddess shall remind you, if you happen to be one of those individuals that pays taxes, you're going to want to go to the IRS website. You're going to want to figure out your tax situation using the neat free little calculator. Then you want to trot to your HR department and redo your W-4. You want to make sure as soon as your taxes for the year are paid with a couple of $100 left over, you change your withholdings so you get to keep your money. For most people, that'll happen around June or July. Okay? You can change your W-4s as many times as you want. They have to let you do it. You should be doing this once a quarter. For those who are self-employed, you know you do your quarterly filing thing. Figure out your quarterly filings and make sure you get that paperwork in, because we're the ones that are going to get whammed now that the IRS is getting bizarre and unaccountable. What else is new? Can't expect anything else from these people. But the point is, do not give those thieves in Washington interest-free loans with like ridiculous regularity. That is the only thing that is important right now. With inflation being the way it is, you need to have your money in your pocket. You need to have your fiat in your possession so that you can convert your fiat into something that actually isn't going to be losing value, like gold, like silver, like platinum, like groceries. Okay? Because the thing is, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, let us see where we are. Dude was wondering whether we would make it. Let's see. 34 trillion, 599 billion, 457.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we went from 374 to 457.
Just $100 million in a half an hour.
Well, it could have been worse. It's only half an hour this week instead of an hour.
It can always be worse.
Well, of course it can always be worse. Stop being a pessimist. Dude. Pessimistic person.
So anyway, for those who came in late, we spent a little time last week doing a little construction work. This week is routine medical appointments and stuff. No more, no particular areas of significant concern. Week after, we may be doing some more construction. Week after that, getting ready to go to Boston. 2 weeks after that, going to Boston, coming back from Boston, and then working our butts off for the whole season, assuming Armageddon doesn't interfere. I give that the chances of Armageddon not interfering with no significant interference with our activities this year, I get at less than 50%. I think that's the chances of external circumstances creating issues that we feel necessary to deal with at greater than 50%.
Oh, you're just a pessimist.
Yeah. Why do we need to put and look up, please? I'm not sure what you're trying to say, Jeff. It's one of those phrases that escapes my neurologically compromised brain.
What?
Why do we need to put and look up, please? Confuzzled. Well, apparently that's two of us then, huh? Any idea what that means? I'm so confused.
It might be taxes.
Anyhow, whatever. I'm sure it makes sense if I had context. I say this: the situation to me continues to just get more unstable. For those of you who think that, okay, um, for those of you who think that Putin is a horrible person, Medvedev, who's kind of like the number two guy over there politically, and would probably replace Putin if Putin leaves, was saying we need to find everyone who had anything to do with this terrorist attack, the people who funded it, the people who planned it, the people who did that, and kill them all, every single one. Well, I certainly agree with it. The train of complicity may get kind of broad, and so we'll see what happens. But anyhow, Middle East, of course, continues to be, just the usual mess up. I have no idea exactly what happened. I don't think it's as simple as they're trying to portray it, honey bunny. We will find out. By the way, somebody brought up an interesting point. This is on Tim Pool. They're setting it up so that Trump is going to have to go pretty extreme in order to try and fix the situation. But that also sets the precedent that a president can go extreme if he wants to. Good point. Oh, well, we'll have to see. It's definitely chaotic. I tend to agree with you, honey bunny. It doesn't look like a standard ISIS thing, which leads me to believe somebody else is involved. And when ISIS is taking credit for it and seemingly, giving some evidence that they were involved in it, I'm wondering who paid them or convinced them or whatever. I don't know. I suspect we're going to find out. The Russians seem to be fairly vigorous in their efforts to get every little scrap of information they can from the perpetrators. Yeah. So anyhow, Europe is having fun times. We're having real fun times with our border and all these 10 million people we got to figure out what to do with no matter what. I'll assume that the person who's doing it now isn't there later. But even if somebody who is very, very smart and very skilled was to try and find and expel 10 million people in a relatively short period of time, that's a pretty daunting challenge, even if you had the cooperation of everyone, which obviously they wouldn't. So I really don't know. And especially what happens, perhaps Honey Bunny has some knowledge of this or somebody else. What do you do if you've got a whole bunch of citizens from country and X in your country here and they're illegal and you want to get rid of them, and country X says, well, don't send them back here, we're not going to take them? I just don't know what the solution to that logistical problem is. Let's say you got 100,000 Fredonians here, and the People's Republic of Fredonia doesn't want them. Do you just airdrop them? You know, do you? Yeah, he was saying, well, you just fly them in, land the plane. I said, well, then how are you going to take the planes off again? I don't know about you, but if I was a foreign government and somebody landed $100 million airliner on my tarmac with 300 citizens, it's like, okay, I'll take the trade. You know, I needed another airliner or two. So I really don't know what, again, if somebody wants to be very, very difficult, I just don't know how you accomplish the logistical task. Well, that's going to be difficult when you've lost your leverage over the planet. I mean, we don't have the financial leverage to get everyone to shut up and sit down like we did, say 5 years ago. So, say, if everyone on the planet pretty much says, yeah, we just don't like dealing with you, we're going to have a problem because you've outsourced so much shit. You know, we have the capacity to do many, many things if given enough time and motivation, an effort to do it. But how self-sufficient are we if we don't have a lot of time and we don't have much cooperation from anyone else, especially if these other people decide to try and deliberately bollocks up the economy by doing what they can through currency manipulation, embargoes, etc., to mess things up. I think we're in a very vulnerable position to disruption from outside intent. I have no idea. But yeah, I would certainly not want to be the one to try and fix this problem. I'm way underqualified. But say, no matter who wins, and obviously there's only one person who's likely to win who would change the situation, how, from a practical standpoint, do they do so? I don't know. So say, interesting situation to which I don't have a facile answer. Mr. Virtue, we all die, okay? Life is a death sentence. The question is, how do you live and who survives under what conditions? I rarely have trouble staying in the 80th or 90th percentile. Given that, well over half the people would have to disappear before, statistically, I'm likely to do so. I think even in World War II in the war-torn countries, they lost typically like 10 or 20% of their population. Well, it's an 80% chance of staying alive. If you focus on just getting things done, then the incoming numbers, I suspect, are going to decline absolutely. The problem is we got so many already in here that we have to get out there is a more intractable problem in my estimation. I could be mistaken. I don't know. But that seems to be the problem. You may stop the leak, but if the boat's already 3/4 full of water, how do you get it pumped out? Don't know. But I think we're in a good location. I think we're in a good industry. We've got good contacts. We're personally reasonably well prepared. Um, I give us a good shot, which is all you can really hope for. Um, so that's my guess there. Now, do we have any other thoughts or subjects or whatever, especially on mining, that somebody wants to bring up? Uh, since I am going to have to get up at some ungodly hour in the morning. Uh, yeah, I agree, David. There's things that you look at from in the future and still happy. Uh, that's one of the partial solutions to the issue. I'm kind of confident of. You know, the the one thing that'll be somewhat satisfying is the people who are pushing so hard for revolution are going to be the first ones to suffer because of it. It's always that way. The one thing the people who win the revolution do not want around is revolutionaries. Because they have this nasty tendency of becoming counter revolutionaries. That's the Bolsheviks, the Jacobins, and all this other stuff. So it will be entertaining to see what happens. But aside from that, what the heck? Any thoughts and plans on locating rhodium? Is there such a thing as micromining it? Not very familiar with rhodium. In terms of platinum group, the only kind of micro scale stuff is usually catalytic converters. And um, platinum group metals are difficult to refine. Their ore deposits are kind of unusual, not, the usual sort of thing. One thing you could probably do is in the prospecting end of the thing, you can use placer techniques to find a mother lode with platinum group as well as you could with gold. Same sort of thing. I mean, back in South America, um, is the reason it's called platinum is because it looked like silver, but it wouldn't melt. So um, they called it platinum, but it was alluvial, alluvial, alluvial placer deposits of metallic platinum group metals. Usually, you don't find rhodium or palladium or anything by itself. It's usually going to be with other platinum group metals. Yep, absolutely. One of the big PGM deposits. I think it's the only big PGM deposit in the United States. But anyhow, if you're plastering and you see something that looks like electrum, first of all, does it smash fairly easy? And what is its melting point? Can you melt it with a propane torch on a piece of in a small dish, or uh, a charcoal briquette or something like that? If you can't melt it, if it's glowing really really hot and it ain't melting, it might be platinum group. Certainly, if you had something that's pretty silvery colored and it doesn't react with nitric acid, it's almost certainly platinum. Never seen PGM sulfides, but I don't know why they couldn't exist. Oh, I are thirsty. Any other statements, questions, or invective to be hurled my way? Oh. Well, I know it's a short night, but tomorrow, next Monday, is likely to be a short night too. Just because, again, we may have to head out early in the morning the next day. Until next time. Not that's a little timer. That's cute. They got all kinds of those little emoji thingies.
Well, heck, we may actually do the live stream on Sunday night next week, and then Easter Sunday, and head out Monday after.
Well, we still got to do rooms and stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the rooms Monday.
We'll see, and keep an eye. We may actually be doing the live stream on Sunday night. Low probability, but it's possibility. So just keep your eyes open. All righty. Well, seeing nothing new then, I guess it's time for you, honey bunny. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 10 seconds, huh? Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. End stream. There we go. End.